I'm Elizabeth and I'm here to talk about books. Today I'm doing a recent reads kind of video or a half-month wrap-up, call it whatever you want. The point is I'm going to show you all of the books I've read so far this year. Spoiler alert, it's not been a great start to the reading year for me, but I think it's getting better. It's gonna end on a positive note. But let's just get into the books. The first thing I read this year was this one. It's a Norwegian graphic novel called Saboteur. I think that's kind of the same in English, Saboteur, someone who's doing sabotage. This is both written and drawn by Jon Jantkli. And I was kind of skeptic going into this. It's kind of drawn in a style I don't really appreciate. I don't really think it's aesthetically pleasing, but I thought if the story was good, it would redeem me not liking the look of the comic. Sadly, I did not really like the story either. This is a book set in Norway during World War II. It's about a group called the Oswald Group doing sabotage against the Germans, and the Oswald Group really existed, and all the events of sabotage portrayed in this book really did happen and was performed by the Oswald Group. The leader of the group is an historical figure and he's in this novel, but the main character is a fictional character, and that's kind of a normal way of doing historical fiction, I guess, mixing reality with fictional characters to give you the leeway of telling the kind of story you want. However, I found the characters in this to be flat. I felt they lacked motivation. They mostly were just running around hating Germans and wanting to kill them because they hated them. I think reality was a lot more nuanced than that. The Oswald Group was a communist resistance group. That does not really show in this novel at all, except maybe towards the very end of it, and what happens with the leader of the group, which was also what happened to him in real life. I also had some problems with the character Rinnan in this novel. He was an actual historical person, and he is cast as the bad guy in this book, and that's fine. He was definitely one of the bad guys. He was responsible for the torture and death of a lot of people, but he did not do any of the things he's doing in this book, and none of the things that happens to him in this book actually happened. So I don't see why they had to give that character his name, why that couldn't just be another fictional character who sort of resembled him. But I mean, it's not like the story is trying to pretend it did happen. It's very open with what is fiction and what is fact. So it's not trying to dupe you into believing anything. I just thought that was unnecessary. But overall, I thought the story was okay, but not much more than that. So I ended up giving this 2 stars. Then I decided to go completely out of my comfort zone. I know I said in a previous video that my comfort zone is big, but some books are still definitely outside it, and among them are self-help books. I feel that I have a lot of prejudice against self-help books, so I wanted to challenge myself and read a couple of those at the beginning of the year and see if they would change my mind. So I picked up two self-help books. One of them was the audiobook of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, and the other was a Swedish book in Norwegian translation. It's called 15 Tips to a Stress-Free Life by Karin Isdal. This is a review copy I got from the Norwegian publisher last year, and I haven't read the book yet. So I decided to give these 2 books a chance, because I love learning new things, and self-help books are basically books really designed to let you learn new things and new things about yourself. So I should like them, right? I didn't really. either one of them. I think the most fun part of this experience was reading the introductions to these two books, because both of them kind of started off by saying that this book is not like all the other self-help books out there. This book actually helps. And then both of them kind of went on to make the same points, basically, except The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck did it with a lot more swearing than this book. That was the main difference between them, really. I felt that both of the books talked down to me somehow. The Subtle Art blah 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 was kind of always trying to be cool and be cooler than me, whereas this book just talked to me like I was about 5 years old, and I don't like that in books. I felt both of them dumbed stuff down to sort of beyond my level, and that just pisses me off, really. And the other thing is, I feel they both are too general in their advice to be useful for me in any way. I mean, one of the advice in this book is to be a happier person. I mean, sure, that's probably why you read this book, but how do you do that? Can you give me some specific advice, please? Not just be a happier person, do things you like, control your breathing. Okay, that last one is kind of practical, I guess, but it's also very obvious. There's nothing in here I didn't already know. And also in this book, it really annoyed me in the beginning that she talks about how she had a severe depression, and then she read a book about psychology and she cured herself of her depression within a month. That's the kind of story that sours me to this book just before it even got properly started, if I'm honest. If I had to choose one of them, I would say I'd prefer The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, just because that book actually did give me some sparks of motivation in looking at my own life. But I ended up giving both of these 2 stars as well. There probably are self-help books out there that would actually help me or inspire me or something, but these 2 were definitely not one of them. Then it's time to get slightly more positive, and the next book I read was kind of sorting in the miscellaneous section, I think. It's called Scottish Words, A Very Peculiar History by Fiona MacDonald. And this is just a tiny book about Scots, about the history of the language, and then just lots of lists of words and phrases, their origin and their meaning. And it gives you a general overview of this language, and I really liked it. I'm geeky enough to like reading lists of words and origins, and I mean, this was a fun read. It's not mind-blowing, it's not gonna be a book of the year, but it never was meant to, I think. It is a little book of trivia, maybe, but I enjoyed reading it. This was a Christmas present from a friend, and she hit the nail on the head with this one. Then I have also listened to another audiobook, and that was a Norwegian novel, or maybe rather a novella, called Videogutten, or The Video Boy, by Tore Renberg. There's a trilogy written by Tore Renberg called the Texas Trilogy that some of my friends have recommended me, and they have particularly recommended to listen to it as audiobooks, because the author reads his novels himself, and apparently he's a very good reader of his novels. I also heard him read excerpts of these novels at a literary festival last year, and I enjoyed hearing him read out those parts, and they were kind of amusing, so I thought that would be a good start to the year. They just became available through Storytel, which is where I stream my audiobooks, so I thought I would give it a go. Except the Videogutten, or The Video Boy, is the prequel to that trilogy. It was published almost a decade before them, I think, but the chronology freak inside of me would not let me listen to the trilogy without having listened to that book first, so I started there. It is basically overly long short story, I would say, about two young boys, about 12, I think, middle grade at least, and they are kind of bored, and then they are introduced to the video boy, who is slightly older than them and living in a different suburb, and he has a vast collection of horror movies on VHS. And so they go to him and they get to eat chips and eat chips, drink Coke and watch these movies. But there's something else going on in that house as well, and we are slowly introduced to that, and that's a whole different story. And this story was okay. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I mean, it was kind of too short for me to get properly engaged in it, I would say. And it was also kind of suffering from the fact that I was expecting something else. I was kind of reading this just to get to something else, so I just wanted to finish it to get started on what I actually wanted to be reading, sort of. The characters from this story will be relevant in the trilogy, but they will be 20 years older when we next meet them. So it was a good introduction. The writing was not the best. There are way too many adjectives in his writing for my taste. It's like, feels like every 3rd word is an adjective, and it gets kind of tiring. But apart from that, it's fun, and I'm looking forward to getting started with the trilogy. That's kind of wrong to say. I have started the trilogy. I'm like 4 hours into the first audiobook, and I do prefer the longer books so far than this short start or introduction to the series. But that's another book I gave 3 stars, so at least it's a step up from the beginning of the year. Then the last book I have finished so far this year, I finished yesterday, and this is definitely the highlight of the year so far. This is a book I actually enjoyed a lot. It's Godsworn by Cameron Hurley. And this is a crossover between sci-fi and fantasy. It's set on a planet where there's some sort of space travel, at least, or there has been space travel, but this particular planet is kind of isolated. But there's also definitive fantastical elements, because there's magic and shape-shifting and stuff going around. I really like the magic system here, built around bugs. It's kind of weird and quirky, but I liked it. And then you have a story about this main character. She's called Nyx. She's a bounty hunter. She's not a very nice person. At least that's what she keeps telling herself. I think she is slightly nicer than she gives herself credit for, to be fair. She has a team of mercenaries around her, and they pick up a bounty that throws them into some gruesome events and fast-paced adventure, and it was good world building, it was good character building, and it was a fun story. And my only regret really with this is that I don't have the second book with me right now, so I'll have to wait to continue on. So this has definitely been the highlight of my reading year so far. I've made some odd choices in the beginning. I mean, I read a graphic novel that I was skeptical about, but I read it because it was recommended to me by a friend. I read 2 self-help books, which is a genre I don't really like, but I was hoping to be proved wrong. Then I read a fun little miscellaneous book, and then I read a book I didn't really want to read. I just wanted to have read it before reading something else. So neither of those are really the recipe for a great read, I guess. And then I read Cameron Hurley, which I really wanted to read and I did enjoy. So that's the start of my reading year. I hope yours have been better. What's the best book you've read so far this year? Anything I would enjoy? Please let me know. And until next time, bye bye.